Okay.
Be'ez Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Basra Daf Kufnun Vav 156, and we are holding on the bottom of Daf Kufnun Hey Amid Beis. And what we're discussing over here is we learned yesterday that somebody who is under either the age of 18 or under the age of 20, it's a machlokes. Chazal, it's very interesting. They made a new law. They made a law that if he inherits a piece of real estate, his sale is going to be invalidated if he decides to sell it, because he doesn't have real estate experience and he's bound to sell it for cheaper than it's really worth. And he's going to get rid of it, not understanding how real estate works. So although a person is considered to be a godol as soon as you turn bar mitzvah, but as far as real estate is concerned, if you inherited the property, you didn't work for the property, you got something like at age 15, you inherited something because your father passed away. Chazal said that person would not be able to sell any real estate unless you turned over 20 or over 18. That's the point. So we're going to begin over here like this. Amar Ameimar. Ameimar said, 2 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Kuf Nun Hey Amebeis. Amar Ameimar. Ameimar said, Umatnasoi matana. If a boy who's 15 years old inherited a property from his parents and he decides to gift it to somebody else, it's going to be valid. So Amalei Ravashi Ramemas. Ravashi said to Ramema, Hashta now, Umaz Vini de Mekabel Zuze, to sell it, and he gets something in return. You get money in return to sell that property. Amrit Deloy. Chazal said it's an invalid sale. They invalidated the sale, they disqualified the sale. Dilma, because maybe Moizil Umazabin. Maybe he's gonna lower the price than what real estate is worth. Umzabin, he's gonna sell it. So selling it, we don't allow a 15-year-old boy to do. Kolshkein, certainly, matana, to gift it to somebody else for free, that he's not receiving anything in return. How can you say, Amemer, that if he gifts it to somebody else, then it's a good gift, it's a valid gift? He's not allowed to sell it. Certainly, she shouldn't be allowed to gift it off. Amalei. So Amemer said to Rav Ashi, you go to Amar Aleph, Kufnum Vav, Ultamech, according to your reason, Zabin, let's say he does sell it. Shave Chamsha Beshisa. If he sells five, it's worth only, 500,000. And he sells it for 600,000. So he's actually selling it for more than what it's worth. Hachinami, would you agree, this Vina, that his sale would be a valid sale? Because all you're afraid of is that this 15-year-old is going to sell it too cheap. But let's say he turns a profit from it by by selling it more than what it's worth. Would you agree that it's a good sale? Ella, no, it's not a good sale, because Kim Luhu Rabbanon, the Rabbanon establish, the Rabbanon knew the psychology of a young 15-year-old. The Nuka, a young guy, is Mikarva Daiti Gabizuza. He likes to see the cash up front. He likes to hold money in his hand. The Ahmed Zvina, if you can always say that whatever he sells is valid, Zimnim the Mekarka Shele people are gonna like shake money in front of his face. Azul Mizabel Davin is gonna start selling off all the properties of his father. He's gonna start selling them off left and right. So Chazal invalidated any property that he sells until he turns 18 or 20. Then we allow it. So that's regarding sale. Avol says Ramemar Gabe Matana, but gifting it to somebody, he loved the Yahav the Havale Hanoah Mine, unless he would have had some benefit in return from the person, Loy Havale Yavel Matana, he would have never given a matana. He must have gotten some nice things from the person that he's gifting the gift of this piece of land, and therefore he's returning the favor. So Amr Rabbanan said, Tavi matanosi matana. We always say that this 15-year-old can always gift it. It's not common that he's going to be gifting it to lehevet lehumili, because we want people to do chesed and do nice things to these yisayimim. So we allowed them to make a gift, but we did not allow them to sell off the assets, to sell off any property until he turns a certain age, 18 or 20. Omar Rav Nachman Omar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said l'Shmuel, Now we know that over bar mitzvah you can do you're an adult, but still you have to check to see if you really have the signs of puberty. So, and only then are you an adult midaraisa. If you just turn bar mitzvah and you just have, if you didn't mature, so then you're not really midaraisa, an adult. So, Amar Shmuel said, Boitkin, we check to see if a person's 13-year-old in one day, or a girl, likudushin. So when it comes to matters of being kedushin, matter of engaging a wife, to see if his kedushin is midaraisa midarabbanan. It's a big difference. Legerishin, we when he wants to get divorced, we check to see if he's a gadol. We checked again to see if he's 13. We asked him to see if he has simanim, the signs of puberty. V'lechalitza, for a boy that has to do a chalitza for a woman that fell to yibam for him. So it's only a valid chalitza unless he's over bar mitzvah and he has simanim. V'lemeunin, the moon is the opposite. It's a girl who was married off by her brothers and mother. So the kedushin's midrabanan, and we learned that if they have a refusal, they can walk away from the marriage as without a get. So as long as they didn't mature. So we have to make sure that they're the opposite. They did not bring simanim, and as long as they didn't bring simanim, they're not considered an adult. So if they're 12 years old or less than 12 years old, if they're 12 years old but they didn't bring the simanim, they can still do mi'un. They can still walk out of this midrabanan diga marriage without a get. The only time a girl that gets married is a daraisa diga marriage if the father married him off. But Chazal allowed that if the father died, the Chazal allowed that in order for her to be, from growing up on the street, they encouraged the father, the brother, and the mother to marry her off as a young kid. And therefore, but they allowed her that if she doesn't like the marriage, she should be able to just refuse the marriage, and then walk away. So, but as long as she's bas mitzvah or lower than that. But even if she's bas mitzvah, if she did not bring simanim, she could do miyun. And then the limka b'nichsi to sell your father's assets, to sell in property that you inherited, we check to see Ache ben Esrim. You have to be 20 years old, and with simanim that you're 20 years old, that you're mature, and that you turned into an adult, then we allow you to sell the property belonging to your father that you inherited. The Kavan says the Gemara. Now the Gemara asks on this statement of Rav Nachman, who said in the name of Shmuel. Rav Nachman said you check to see if he's over bar mitzvah when he first gets engaged to the girl, and then when he wants to give a divorce, we have to check again to see if he has simanim. So the question is, since you check this person to see if he's an adult when it comes to getting engaged, Legerish and Lamali, then why do you have to recheck him again when he's doing a divorce? What changed? Of course, if he was an adult to get engaged, he could be an adult to sign a divorce paper. Answers the Gemara, not every marriage a person had to be over bar mitzvah. If a boy was miyabim, and then he got married, a kedushin daraisa, even if he was under bar mitzvah. It's now we learned in the Mishnah. Ben teisha shanim v'yamecher. If a boy is 9 years old in one day, shva al yivimta, that came upon his yavama kana. He married her. The ain a nice and get, but he can't give a get. Yigdol, a divorce paper, he has to become bar mitzvah. So therefore, he got married when he was a small boy. And Dreisadig marriage because it's a Yavama marriage. And now, when he wants to give a get, we have to check. Even though he says he's over bar mitzvah, we want to make sure he has simonim that he's an adult. La chalitza, for coming to give a chalitza, why do we have to check to see if they're over bar mitzvah and she's over bas mitzvah? We check for simonim. What is that? Of course, every mitzvah has to be an adult. There's an opinion. We're trying to exclude ourselves and separate ourselves from the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. The Amar, he said, Ish ksib parsha. Only it says when in parsha of chalitza that the boy has to be an adult. Aval isha, but a woman to accept chalitza, ben gedayla, whether she's over bas mitzvah, ben getana, when she's under bas mitzvah, she could accept a chalitza. Kamash malan, the makshina ish ish, the loik Rabbi Yossi, that we say no. that we compare, we juxtapose the woman to the man. Just like the man, when it comes to giving a chalitza, has to be an adult, so the woman who's coming to accept the chalitza also has to be an adult, not like Rabbi Yossi's opinion, and therefore we check for chalitza to see even if the girl is over bas mitzvah. Ulamei unim, and she has simanim. Ulamei unim, miyun. What are we checking for? Of course, if she's an adult, she cannot do miyun. Lapukim Rabbi Yehuda, the Ama Achi B'Shachar Kamash Malam to like Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda is of the opinion that even if a girl is over bas mitzvah and brought simanim, but not a lot of simanim, she didn't have a lot of black hairs, then she could still do miyun. So Kamash Malam teaches us that we don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that a girl who's over bas mitzvah and has 2 hairs, so that is enough already to say that she's an adult and she can no longer do the miyun. And then we said, "V'limka b'nichsei aviv ad sheyehei ben esrim." Rab Nachman said that in order for you to sell your father's property that you inherited, you have to be over 20 years old. What's that excluding? Lapuke miman dama ben shmona esrei. Because Rab Nachman disagrees from the opinion who says that you can be 18 years old and sell property that you inherit. Kamash Mulam, that no, Rab Nachman's opinion is you have to be over 20. And now the Gemara concludes with 5 hilchasas. The hilchas of the halacha is toich zman k'lifnei zman. That means when we say that you have to be over 20, it means you have to be about 21, because the 20th year is like younger than 20. So that's the toich zman. Within the 20th year is like k'lifnei zman. It's like before 20, which the sale would be invalid. The hilchas of Gidel ben Menashe, the halacha is like Gidel ben Menashe, who said that if in case the 15-year-old boy is astute in real estate, he has a real estate license, so we can assume that he's very proficient in real estate. In his case, we will allow him to sell real estate. And that was the chiddush of Gidel ben Menashe. The halacha is Kemar Zutra. The halacha is like Mar Zutra, which we saw before, who said that to say testimony, a boy could say testimony, a 15-year-old could say testimony regarding a sale of metaltalin, movable items, since they can sell movable items. The only issue of a 15-year-old is regarding real estate, but movable items, they're allowed to interact and sell. So they can be an aidus to that. The hilchasa ka'ameimer, the halacha is like what we just said from Ameimer, that when that a gift of a 13-year-old, even though he's not proficient in real estate, the gift is valid. Even though this 13-year-old cannot sell a real estate that he inherited from his father, but to gift it to somebody else, we allow him to do. The hilchasa, the halacha is Karav Nachman, Amar Shmuel B'Kulei, and all these things regarding Kiddushin, Gerish, and Chalitza, meaning that we don't just rely on the birth certificate. We also have to check for simanim to be able to make sure that we're doing it midaraisa, doing it correctly. So that's that. All that is the halacha. Now we go into the new Mishnah. Hamachalek nechosim apib. We're going to learn the new opinion of Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says that there is no such a thing, a guy on his deathbed, by just verbally saying something, it automatically becomes that person's property, because that's the nichse of a shchiv merah. But Rabbi Lazar disagrees. A guy is giving away all his assets on his deathbed. Rabbi Lazar said, whether he's healthy, even if he's on his deathbed, the person, the recipient, has to do a kinyan. The chashem sheyesh l'machrayis, if it's property, if he's giving away real estate, niknan b'kesav shtar v'chazaka, the recipient has to do a kinyan of kesav or shtar or document or chazaka, take possession of it. V'she'ein le'machrayis, if it's like a Rolex watch or cufflinks, ein niknas elamim shicha, then he can only acquire it only if he lifted it up or brought it, schlepped it out of the home of the giver. So Rabbi Lazar doesn't hold of this concept that we've been talking about up until now, that a nichsei shchimera is, as soon as he says something out of his mouth, the other side receives it. And the Chachamim argue. We learned the Chachamim argue on that. We go to Amud Beis. Amr Loi, so the Chachamim said, Masa be'imen shel b'nei Reichel. What are you telling me? There's a story about the mother of the sons of Reichel, right? The mother didn't like her boys. Okay, this mother who's on her deathbed didn't like her boys, right? And her husband's name was Reichel. So the mother, who was married to this Reichel, had some property or possessions, and she was very sick. And she said, give my brooch, one of my jewelry, to my daughter. Vihi b'shnei masamana, and she's worth $12,000. Umayson, she died, and the girl didn't do a kinyan in that. So the boy said, "Hey, it's ours. We inherited it." The kimus devarel, and the Chazal were mekayim her words. In other words, they said it's effective. She gave it away, even though the girl didn't make a kinyan on that. So that proves the point that the shchimera, a person on his deathbed, just by saying something, automatically it becomes the possession of the recipient without the recipient doing a kinyan. So that was the proof, the chachamim against Rab Lazar. Amalahan, Rab Lazar says, "Bnei Reichel tikberein imim." He said that sons of Reichel, really, their mother should have buried them when they were alive. In other words, he's saying that really a kinyan should have been done over here by the boy, by the girl, by the sister of Reichel, of the sons of Reichel. But since they were Rishoyim, according to Rabbi Lazar, Chazal made an exception over there and said, give it to the daughter, because it's a knas. It was a penalty that they didn't want the boys to get it because they were Rishoyim. But really, if they were, regular people, it would have actually belonged to the boys. And we'll see what did the sons of Reichel do wrong. So the Gemara says like this: Tiny, we learned in the Brayso. Lehen Rab Lazar Chama. Rab Lazar said to Rechomen, Ma'aseh b'Barayni Echad. There was a person from, let's say, from Moron, the city of Moron. Echad Shai b'Yerushalayim, that he happened to be in Yerushalayim. V'oyele mitaltel in Harbe, and he had a lot of possessions, a lot of cufflinks and watches and belts and whatever, and he was a shchimera. Ubikish litnu matani, wanted to gift it away. Amru Lai, so that they said to him, Ag einlem takana achiyakna gav karka. So they told him that and this is the story of Rabbi Lazar is proving his point, that just they told this guy who was on his deathbed and he wants to gift it, you cannot gift it away until the person acquires it. So you have to make them acquire it. Holach, he went, v'lokach beisela echad samach Yerushalayim. He bought a cheap piece of property next to Yerushalayim. V'ama, and he said, Tzvayni leplini, I'm giving north of this property to somebody. V'imay me'etzoyni me'echavius, and I'm giving him along with acquiring this property 100 sheep and 100 barrels of wine. Udraimi, the south of this property, leplini is going to so and so. V'imay me'etzoyni me'echavius was 100 sheep and 100 barrels. Umeis, and he died. So basically, he made the recipient acquire a property. And there's a kinyan called derech haragav. Once you acquire the property, you could acquire anything, movable item along with the property. Just like you could acquire a property and you acquire the tractor that's on the property. So you could acquire the property along with barrels of wine or sheep, even though maybe they're not on the property, but that's called a derech agav. The kimu chachamim mistavrav, and the chachamim accepted his words. So we see from there that according to Rabbi Lazar, that Rabbi Lazar's understanding of the story was the guy was on his deathbed, and yet in order to effectuate what he was trying to say, it wasn't enough that he had words. He had to make the recipients acquire a property so he could gift them the metaltalin that he wanted to give them. So we see from there that Shchimara doesn't have that power with his mouth. Amrulai, so the Chachamim answered back, Misham Rai, you're going to prove me from there? Maraini Bari Haya. That person from Moron was a healthy person. So we agree, a healthy person, if he wants to gift something to somebody, the recipient has to make a kinyan, an acquisition. But a shchimera, a person on his deathbed, he gets away. He gets away without making a kinyan. So that's the basic machlokes between Rab Lazar and the Chachamim. Finally, we'll end over here. The Gemara, just another minute or two. Amar lei, Amar lehem b'nei Reichel tikbrem ima. So again, the story that the Mishnah brought, the Rabbi Lazar said that it's not a good story because he holds that the people of the kids of Reichel, their mother should bury them. So the Gemara asks the question: my time what the problem did Rabbi Lazar curse the sons of this person called Reichel? What did they do wrong? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel They were keeping thorns in a vineyard, which according to Rabbi Lazar, it makes the vineyard klayim. Thorns maybe from a plant and animal food in this vineyard. Now, normally you know that to make klayim for a kerem, you have human food, chitim, sairim, wheat and barley with a vineyard. That makes klaya kerem. But they were using thorns, animal food, and planting it right next to a vineyard, which according to Rabbi Lazar is considered to be klayim. And they were doing it. So he said they were doing wrong. So therefore, and they did it on purpose. So therefore, Rabbi Lazar held that because they were Rishoyim, that's why they confiscated the brooch, the piece of jewelry that their mother gave to their sister who did not make a kinyan. How do you know that? Reb Lezer goes according to his reasoning. Now we learned in the Mishnah, if you keep thorns next to a kerem, Reb Lezer kiddush. You made it. Kiddush is a funny word, but kiddush is based on the pasuk that says you made it klayim kerem. If you keep thorns, animal food, planting it next to the kerem, it becomes klaya kerem. Okay, so therefore, so we skip this. So the Gemara understands what's wrong with that. What could you use koitzim for? Basically, it's used as camel food, and therefore in Arabia it's used as camel food, even though most places don't plant koitzim as animal food, but in Arabia they do, and therefore he held that makes it klaya kerem. One final point, Omar Rab Levi. Rab Levi says, and this ends the point, let's say a guy is on his deathbed. You tell him that, and it's Shabbos, and you tell him, hey, look, anything you say is going to take effect. And he doesn't believe you. He's on his deathbed. He says, I don't believe you. I want to give away my assets at Shabbos, and therefore, to make a kinyan on Shabbos is an Issur D'Rabbanan, because it looks like you're doing business on Shabbos. But if the only way he's going to trust us that it's going to be effective is if we do this kinyan on Shabbos, then we'll do it on behalf of a guy who's on his deathbed. Not because we hold like Rabbi Lezer that a shchiv mirah needs to do a kinyan. Really, a shchiv mirah does not need to do a kinyan. But like I said, if we're talking about a type of shchiv mirah who doesn't believe that we're going to keep his words after he dies unless a kinyan is done, and if we don't do a kinyan, he's going to get sicker, he might get shocked and die earlier. So therefore, we follow his words and Mechala Shabbos midrabanan, and that's the concern. Now, Hashem titrif daito I love. Maybe he's going to go Michigan if you can see that we're not being keeping his words. He's going to get suddenly go into death mode. So therefore we do the kinyan even on Shabbos, even though we don't even have to do this kinyan on Shabbos. Okay, we will stop over here.